Croissants might be off limits for President Trump, and it's not because of calories. Blame French President Emmanuel Macron.
I think it was disgraceful. Disgraceful.
Macron recently took a pretty pointed jab at Trump while explaining why he decided to sue conservative commentator Candace Owens. You might remember Owens. She's got a massive YouTube following, about 4 million subscribers. And she stirred up a wild conspiracy about Macron's wife, Brigitte, claiming she was actually born male. Yep, really. Owens even went all in this year creating an 8-part podcast series called Becoming Brigitte, pushing this theory as if it were the next big expose. Obviously, the Macrons didn't take that lightly. They filed a lawsuit saying they had suffered substantial reputational damage and even spent serious money trying to correct the record. And just like you'd expect, Owens wasn't backing down. She reportedly called the suit goofy and a vicious public relations stunt, claiming it was all about silencing the truth.
If you need any more evidence that Brigitte Macron is definitely a man, it is just what is happening right now. The idea that you would file this lawsuit is all of the proof that you need, okay?
Here's where it gets really interesting. Macron didn't just defend the lawsuit, he also took a subtle swipe at Trump. In a Paris Match interview, he pointed out that free speech isn't about letting falsehoods run wild or trying to block the truth from being set straight. Then he dropped this sharp line: those who hide behind freedom of speech are often the same people who barred journalists from the Oval Office. Yep, a clear nod to Trump's past treatment of the media, when outlets like the Associated Press, Reuters, and Bloomberg were shut out of events.
I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you stay categorically?
You are fake news.
Of course, Owens' team fired back, saying, "Candace Owens is not shutting up. This is a foreign government attacking the First Amendment rights of an American independent journalist." But Macron didn't budge. He stressed that Owens knew exactly what she was doing, spreading false news, causing harm, and using it to gain attention and profit, all while pushing her ideological agenda. The Macron's lawsuit isn't messing around either. It's 22 counts, asking for a jury trial and punitive damages for what they call verifiably false and devastating lies about Brigitte's gender. So the stage is set. We've got a huge media battle, international legal drama, and a not-so-subtle dig at Trump. And all this started over a conspiracy theory that sounds straight out of a movie. But interestingly, this conspiracy theory didn't even originate in the US. Let's rewind to December 2021, when France was still tense from the Yellow Vest protests and the chaos of COVID. That's when a spiritual medium, Amandine Roy, shared a nearly 4-hour YouTube interview with Natasha Ray, a woman who sells essential oils and refers to herself as an independent investigative journalist. After spending 3 years analyzing old photos, Ray claimed Brigitte was actually Jean-Michel. Sounds wild, right? The video racked up 500,000 views within hours, and soon, the hashtag Jean-Michel Trogneux was trending.
I think they made a huge mistake.
In early 2022, Brigitte and her brother, Jean-Michel, sued both Roy and Ray for defamation in Paris. They actually won, at first. A court ordered the pair to pay 13,000 euros in damages, but then came the twist. An appeals court overturned the verdict just this month, saying that while the claims were outrageous, they didn't meet France's narrow legal definition of defamation. Now, the Macrons are appealing to France's highest court, and Brigitte has filed a separate cyber harassment case, with 10 people set to stand trial this October. Now, here's where things get even more interesting. Daily Mail journalists Paul Bracchi and Peter Allen dug into the claims and came up with a pretty convincing counter. That supposed childhood photo of young Brigitte as a boy, they believe it's actually her older brother Jean-Claude, who was 8 years her senior and managed the family's chocolate factory. And let's not forget, birth certificates in France are tightly protected. Only the individual or their relatives can request them. But a local newspaper, Courrier Picard, announced Brigitte's birth back in April 1953, listing all her siblings, Anne-Marie, Jean-Claude, Marivonne, Monique, and Jean-Michel, celebrating the arrival of their baby sister. As for those saying there were no childhood photos of Brigitte, turns out that's not quite true. The journalists found several, including one of her as a 7-year-old taking her first communion and another of her playing in the garden. There's even her wedding photo from her first marriage to banker André-Louis Osier, long before the Macrons became France's power couple. Before stepping into the Élysée Palace in 2017, Brigitte told her students, "You'll hear remarks true and false. I'll never talk about them." Well, clearly this time, she's making an exception. Part of the reason these rumors gain traction is the public's ongoing scrutiny of the Macrons' unconventional relationship. He was just a teenager when they met, and she was his teacher. Yes, you heard that right. During a rare interview, Brigitte admitted, "My head was in a mess. For me, such a young boy was crippling." So, how did it all begin? Let's rewind to the early 90s. Emmanuel was just 15 years old, a student at Lycée La Providence in Amiens, a small city in northern France. Brigitte, a woman 24 years his senior, married with 3 children, was his literature and drama teacher. And get this, her eldest daughter, Laurence, was actually in the same class as Emmanuel. At the time, Brigitte had been married for about 20 years to a banker named André-Louis Osier. She was living a completely normal, respectable life as a wife, mother, and teacher. But everything changed when she met Emmanuel. You know where it's going. Their bond started while working during a school play, The Art of Comedy, by Italian playwright Edoardo De Filippo. Every Friday night they stayed after school, rehearsing lines, exchanging ideas, and apparently falling in love. Or at least he was.
And this is for a very positive memory.
Every Friday I would go write a play with her for a few hours. We talked about everything. It seemed to me that we had always known each other, the French president later revealed. Brigitte later said that working with young Emmanuel was like working with Mozart. He wasn't just smart, he was intense, driven, and way beyond his years.
We work very well together.
Now, at first, people just thought it was a close teacher-student relationship, but then things got a little too close. Other students started noticing that Brigitte and Emmanuel spent a lot of time together, staying late after rehearsals, deep in conversation, clearly very focused on each other. And then came the moment that really set off alarm bells. They were spotted at a restaurant, sharing what witnesses described as a tender moment. Let's just say, small towns love their gossip. Rumors started flying, and when Emmanuel's parents found out, they couldn't believe it. At first, they actually thought he was dating Brigitte's daughter, because that would have made way more sense. But when they realized the truth, they took immediate action. His mother, Françoise, admitted that when she first found out, she was completely shocked.
I think everybody was emotional at this very moment.
In a biography about Macron, his mother said, "We couldn't believe it. When Emmanuel met Brigitte, we couldn't just say, 'That's great.' And honestly, can you blame her? Imagine your teenage son having long personal phone calls with someone much older, especially when that person is also his teacher. That's not exactly a situation most parents are prepared for. Their solution? Get him out of there. Fast. They sent him off to an elite boarding school in Paris, hoping that, with some distance, he'd move on, meet girls his own age, and forget all about his teacher. Brigitte, knowing how scandalous the situation had become, tried to distance herself as well. She believed Emmanuel would move on, meet someone his own age, and forget about her. But he didn't. Even from Paris, Emmanuel kept in touch. He called, he wrote letters, and he refused to let go. He even told Brigitte, "No matter what you do, I will marry you." I mean, come on. Most teenage boys are just trying to get through their exams, and here's Emmanuel, making lifetime commitments.
I always prefer having direct discussion.
And Brigitte? Despite everything, her husband, her kids, the social scandal, she couldn't ignore her feelings either. But she wasn't reckless. She knew her children would be affected, so she took her time. For 10 years, she stayed in contact with Emmanuel, but remained in her marriage, trying to shield her family from the inevitable fallout. But eventually, the marriage ended. By then, Brigitte's children were adults, and she finally felt free to be with Emmanuel. André-Louis Osier, her ex-husband, took it hard. He left the family home in 1994, though their divorce wasn't finalized until 2006. A year later, in 2007, France's future president and his ex-drama teacher got married. She was 54, he was 29. And in an almost symbolic twist, they tied the knot in Le Touquet, the same seaside town where she had once married her first husband.
Quel rôle vous jouez auprès de lui?
Je suis son épouse. C'est tout simple.
When asked about their age gap, Brigitte told Elle France, "There are times in your life when you need to make vital choices, and for me, that was it. If I hadn't made that choice, I would have missed out on my life.